Tabletop gaming is experiencing a full-blown renaissance. People everywhere are learning that tabletop games are a great way to reconnect with the analog world around them and rediscover their original social network. Gamebox Monthly sends a unique new tabletop game right to your door every month. There are multiple subscriptions to choose from, and you can personalize each of them to fit your style. So whether you're looking to bring the family together for a weekly game night, a couple looking for the best stay-at-home date idea, or just someone looking for a great new way to spend a night with friends, Gamebox sends a title just for you, letting you focus on what matters most, having great times with great people. So visit GameboxMonthly.com now and use the promo code DRAGON to get an exclusive discount just for Dragon Wagon Radio listeners. Again, that's promo code DRAGON. Discounts. Everybody likes discounts. So what are you waiting for? Visit GameboxMonthly.com right now and rediscover social. Hello and welcome to another episode of Elaborate. I'm your host, Jake Lloyd. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks to everybody who came out last night to the LA premiere of my debut feature film, Pinch. It hasn't happened yet for me, but I'm assuming it was a blast and that people showed up. So thanks for that. This week I have a fantastic guest. He's an incredibly funny comedian, actor, and writer. You've seen him on fucking everything, from Conan O'Brien to Comedy Central Presents, Modern Family, Castle. He's also the host of an incredibly great podcast called The Full Release. It's Mo Mandel. What's going on, Mo?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good. My dog is like literally attacking your whole body right now. I apologize.
He's biting and humping me at the same time. He's a man after my own style.
I was going to say, that's sort of how you do it, right?
Yeah, that's kind of my move, too.
Campfire.
Oh, now he's humping me. All right.
You like willed that into existence.
I like it because dogs are just so funny where he's like literally like kind of slapping him in the face for the last like minute, and the only time he barks at me is when I stop slapping him in the face.
Yeah, he likes it.
Yeah,
it's the attention.
He's into pain. Should get him a little leather harness mask.
A little gimp mask?
Yeah, he's so into pain.
Anyways, all right, we're here. We're resetting. We got this. We're professionals. Mo, I've known you for a long time, but I don't know you very well. I feel like, if I'm not mistaken, when I first moved out to LA, the very first stand-up show that I ever did in LA, like the week that I got here, was a show that you and Theo Vaughn used to put up at the what was it? What did they call it? What was the side room?
The old
at the
improv lab.
The lab. Yeah, right. The Mo and Theo comedy show.
Yeah, I think we called it like Cleverly Named Comedy Show.
That's what it was. Yeah. Mo and Theo's Cleverly Named Comedy Show.
Yeah, so that was probably like 2009. Is that when you moved out here? 2010?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right on the money. Yeah, it's been a minute, but I don't know that I've seen you since.
Is that true?
Yeah, I don't know that I've actually seen you.
That's
I mean, we might have crossed paths like in a club after that at some point. But
that's how big the LA comedy scene is. You can just sort of just miss people for a decade.
Right. Yeah.
I started comedy in San Francisco, and it's like you knew every single person who had ever told a knock-knock joke. And you're down here in LA, it'll go years and years, without seeing people.
Well, because there's also, I think, like a greater churn in LA of people who show up here and they're here doing comedy regularly for 2 years, and then they either move back to where they're from or they go to another. I feel like because there's so much churn, it's not like you're really truly seeing the same exact people every single. It's the same thing with like acting too. Like you see the same people at auditions for a little while, and then they start changing, and there's other people.
Right. And I'm in this weird stage comedy wise where like I've been down here for 10 years and I've been doing comedy for 14 years, and it's like I know all the people who are, at sort of my sort of level in the clubs and above, but I really don't know the people. The newer people,
right? Yeah.
But they're the ones who book all the like bar shows and
they're
stuff.
They're the ones who are booking like the cool,
the shows that I want to do. But they're all like at least 5-6 years younger than me, and they haven't been doing it as long, so I don't know them.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, someone's doing a cool, show in a Japanese restaurant. I'm like, I don't know who the fuck that person is, but I would love to do that show.
Or like the back of a fucking comic book store.
Yeah, because when I was first starting out comedy, when I first moved here, I think I was on stage more because I knew all those people because I was part of that sort of group, and then those people become friends, and
then the friends just book each other.
Yeah, and now most of the people I started comedy with, they're ascended such a high level,
Right.
they can't help, they're not helping me get to that level, but they're certainly not helping me get stage time either.
It is weird, like, because you know that the people that are on those shows are like, man, how do I get gigs like Mo Mandel has? And meanwhile, you're like, I want to work in your
I'm like,
coffee bean tea leaf.
Yeah, those shows I get on the clubs are great twice a week, but I want to be going up 6 nights a week.
Exactly. You know? Yeah, it is weird how truly cliquey it is. And you would think that it's funny that you say like, oh, they're all 5 years younger than me. I've noticed that like the age is sort of irrelevant. Like for the most part, in every clique.
Well, I just mean like, because I'm not famous, so I don't know if comics know who I am. You know, so like if I see someone's doing like a show at like a bowling alley,
right,
and they don't know me,
right.
Do I hit them up on Facebook and say, hi, you know, I was on Chelsea lately 40 times and I've done this? Are they going to be like, what a douchebag? Like, I don't know who the hell this guy is. Or are they going to be like, oh, this guy's actually been on TV a bunch. It would be cool for him to come to our show.
I feel like
I don't know how to make that introduction in a way that's not offensive.
Although I feel like anybody who's just been doing comedy for as long as you have, I feel like anybody in comedy should.
I don't know. Like, I was getting ready to shoot my comedy special a couple years ago, which is now on Amazon. It's called Negative Reinforcement. And I went up, I was shooting it in Denver, and the weekend before I was in San Francisco doing stand-up, you know, headlining the Punchline where I had started, you know, that was where I started comedy. That's where everyone in San Francisco starts out. It's like the biggest club in town. And I was like, you know, I'm going to go back to the old open mic at the Brainwash Laundromat where I used to do it, you know, when I first started this adventure,
Really?
you know, 10, 12 years ago. And I go there and I'm thinking, you know, this is great, you know, and all the new comics there, they had no idea who I was.
Sure.
And even though I'm one of the guys out of that scene who has gone on to have a career,
right.
They didn't no idea who I was. And so I went up and I did my jokes and got laughs, and they go, oh, you're really funny. Did you used to do comedy? You're just kind of getting back into it? I'm like, wow. Not only am I like one of the comics from here who has had a TV career and I'm actually headlining the club you're all trying to work, you don't even they don't know who I am. It's
they're like, oh, you must have like, you know, did you knock some girl up and you had kids and
I know.
now that you're in a steady office job, you're going to come back to it on the weekends?
It's just like there is no moment in this showbiz adventure that does not result in you getting kicked in the stomach. It always, there's just indignities along the entire way. It's just amazing. The amount of shit
every
you have
rung
to put
of
up
the
with.
ladder is miserable in its own special and unique way.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's just constant. Even then, that next night, I went and shot the special in Denver, and this I actually was able to capture this moment on the special itself. But as I'm walking out of the theater, they're already taking my name off the marquee. Like I'm not even off the property, and they're just like, "Let's get rid of this shit."
That's such like a fucking Curb Your Enthusiasm moment of
yeah. And then the camera guy luckily was following me, like for like little bonus stuff, and he caught me like talking to the guy as he's taking off my name. It's like that's why comedy's so hard, because you have to just prove yourself all the time. Oh, you just shot a special? Well, that's done.
Although
do something now.
It is interesting that you say that, like about how like the group of people didn't know you, because I'm trying to think back, like when I first started, and you're in that little clique, like everybody has their little comedy clique when you are doing 5-6 nights a week with the same exact people in random venues, and it does feel like sort of like the only thing that matters are those 6 people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why comedy's a little easier in the beginning, because all that matters is getting funnier.
Right.
You get like 1 or 2 new jokes, and everyone in your crew sees that you're getting funnier. You have new material.
I feel like it's also easier to work with people early on because you're less inclined to be like irritated by people giving you a tag or like just sort of helping.
Well, everyone's open. People are more open. No one's got
open.
no one has as much of an ego. You know.
Right.
But then I feel like if you get to a certain level where you're like, well, I've seen that getting funnier kind of gets you to this level.
Right.
So how the fuck do I get to another level? And they're like, oh, that doesn't have that much to do with being funny. That has to do with something else.
Now I'm funny. Now how the fuck do I make money?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, well, you better. Mitch Hedberg has the best joke about that, where he was saying that like when he came to LA and they see that you're stand up, they want to know if you can act or if you can write. And he goes, that's like if you became a great chef. And like, that's good, but like, can you farm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said that you got your start in San Francisco. Is that where you're from?
I'm from Northern California. There's a teeny little town called Boonville.
Wait, hang on a second.
It really is called Boonville, yeah.
There's the name Boone is literally in
it. Yeah, and it's 700 people, so it's legit the boonies. And that's where I grew up. My parents still live in the same house I was born in.
Shit, really?
Yeah, no doctor.
Do you feel like that is an awesome thing that you can go back to the house that you were raised
Yeah,
in.
no, it's totally awesome. I mean, I'm so lucky in that regard. My parents they have an incredible marriage, about to celebrate their 50th anniversary in June.
Well, shit.
Yeah, I come from a very, I don't know if I'd say idyllic background, because, there's things going on in every household
Sure,
and
of course.
every place you grew up. And, a lot of kids would, make fun of me for being a Jew because it was out in the country and shit, but it's about as far from LA as you could grow up.
Right,
That's for
right.
sure. I literally grew up on a dirt driveway.
Oh,
That is still a dirt driveway to this day.
It's country. Like,
It's country, yeah.
Did you have like really distant neighbors and like a big piece of property, that kind of thing?
I was somewhat close to town, so I could walk down to town, but a lot of my friends would live way the fuck out there.
Right.
So it was the kind of thing where if you wanted to go see a friend, you had to get your parents to drive you. There was 15 minutes.
There was
yeah.
not like that quick, like, oh, I'm gonna take my bike over to fucking Jimmy's.
No, I
Yeah.
had some cousins who grew up in the suburbs. I always envied that they could like bike over to their friend's house to
Right.
play Pogs or something like that.
Are you an only child?
No, I have a brother who lives in San Francisco.
Were you guys close?
We're
in age?
very close. Yeah, he's 2 years older than me.
Okay, so at least you weren't like the lone indoor kid who was miles from his closest
No,
friend.
I mean there was like friends would kind of come over and you'd dig around in ditches and
Right.
make rope swings and stuff. There was always lots of stuff like that going on. I mean growing up in the country is so special, especially when you're young. I think
Yeah.
that's like the best thing. And then you hit high
'Cause
school and you're like,
I feel
kinda
like you probably become a lot more independent, and you're probably just a lot more of like a freestanding human growing up in the country, because I feel like parents just don't micromanage as much in the country.
yeah, they don't micromanage as much. It's sort of like the same way they treat their cats in the country. You just sort of get to just roam around and
As
they
long
come
as they're
back.
fed,
Yeah.
they'll check in. Yeah.
We had a cat growing up that disappeared for like 2 years, just became a country cat and would just sort of come back and forth. And those cats are amazing. They can just live on their own. And then she was like, I'm a little older. I think I'm done. And she just sort of moved back into the house.
Oh, really?
She sort of sowed her wild oats and then was like, all right, I'm back. You can take care
She
of me.
went on
again."
Rumspringa.
Yeah, she did. She went on Rumspringer, exactly.
What did your parents do?
My dad is still a psychiatrist. He just
Oh,
works a couple
shit.
days a week. And my mom has done massage and also has a master's in psychology.
Oh,
And,
wow. So you lived in the country with parents who knew how to make you talk.
Yeah. Oh, there's always been a lot of talking in my house. Yeah. My mom still does like some massage and therapy, and
That's
stuff
had
like
to have.
yeah.
That's had to lent your ability to be a stand-up. Like as a young kid,
my
having
ability
to-
by like just fucking your brain up. So
yeah,
you have
or,
to talk.
or also just being that too. But like being able to be transparent and to be like, oh, I know what's going on in my brain. Were you like?
I mean, yes, that's true, but I would think that I would be more like mentally together
Than you
But-
actually are.
Yeah, I think I have plenty of like mental battles inside that I would think like, I mean, I don't know if that's a realistic expectation. I think just because your parents are psychologists, because they both have their own shit too. So it's
Sure.
not like they're like perfect people, but yeah, I don't know. What do you, it's like, do you always learn the lessons that your parents have to teach you is a real question, Like
That's a
my parents
great
have
question.
an incredible relationship. And I think at this point I have a good relationship, but there's plenty of times in my life where I would struggle with relationships or not really know how to have one in the right way. And I remember my parents being like how the fuck do you know how to do this? Like, this is the one thing we should have taught you how to do.
Because by example, look at us.
Yeah,
We're
I think
doing
the
it.
one thing that I've really gained from one of the main things I've gained from my parents raising me in the way they have is I know what a good relationship is supposed to look like.
Right.
I think a lot of people who, if their parents have a dysfunctional marriage, they don't even know what the ideal is. But I've seen the way people are supposed to treat people. Not that I know how to treat them that way, but I know that I should know.
Right.
I know the right thing to aspire to.
Yeah, because you've watched it your entire life.
Yeah.
Although one could also argue that like the problem was the standard.
No, that's another way to look at it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's people who have their parents have a horrible marriage, and so they really are inspired to go out and create a great marriage.
Yeah.
And then there's people who have parents have a great marriage, and they're a little intimidated by it. I mean, I know quite a few people like that who, especially women who really idealize their fathers. I've found a lot of times will be single for a while because they don't really.
Nobody's gonna live up.
No one's
to it.
going to live up to it. Yeah.
It might also be the same thing with men who idolize their mothers. It's
Yeah.
that whole thing,
But who do any men idolize their mothers? I feel like that's
The
Really?
Oedipus complex. There's an entire complex named after it.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess you're right.
I mean, think about all like the mom. Come on, you're Jewish. How do you not
I
know that
love
this
my
happened?
mother, and she's great. And my mom used to, talking. I think she thought I had an Oedipus complex with a kid. I actually remember like giving my mom a hug or something as a kid, and she's on the phone with her friend, and she goes, "Oh, Mo is hugging me. He's going through his Oedipus complex." And I was like, Jesus, like that's the kind of shit you don't want to hear. And that's
also like there's another layer to that.
Yeah,
that's
it's like-
not really.
I don't know if that's idealizing your mom or wanting to fuck your mom.
Well, I come from like a super opposite situation where my dad left before I was even born. And my mom was in 2 marriages. She never really, I had like the recycling door of boyfriends in and out. Like, so I never had that sort of like perfect, relationship to look up to. But I have always felt like I've never had a problem being in relationships. If anything, I might rush into every relationship because I've seen it fail so easily, and I've never had that representation that I'm just like, oh yeah, no, I can make this work. Like,
right, because the bar is so low that you're like, well, I might as well jump in because I could clearly do better than my parents did.
Right, yeah.
So I'm not going to fuck up that bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing this podcast with my girlfriend now, the full release, and she is like a doctor of urology and sexual medicine, and so a lot of the questions we get have to do with like, we take calls from guests and stuff, and a lot of times guests will call and talk about their intimacy problems that they're having with their partners and stuff. And one thing you just sort of realize when you take those kind of calls is like, God, it's like maintaining the connection when you're in a relationship or a marriage is so difficult. And there's just so many obstacles to that, whether they're physical obstacles to maintain intimacy or the emotional obstacles. And, when we started doing this podcast together, that was one of the things we were worried about was like, is this going to, while bringing us together on the podcast, is it going to drive us apart as a relationship?
Is it going to start? Are other people's questions going to, you're going to start seeing yourself reflecting in those?
Some of that, but also just like, are we going to now, when we talk to each other, only talk about the podcast and be focused on the podcast? Right. And that'll be kind of like become this child that we're raising that's sort of driving us apart and not really focusing on our own intimacy.
Wow, the fact that you had the wherewithal to even discuss that before going into it tells me that you're probably going to be fine, because if you're aware enough that
because I'm like in my late, mid to late 30s now, and she's in her mid 30s, so it's sort of like I've seen enough of what ruins a relationship. Yeah, like my old girlfriend who was an actress, we would always work together on acting together and run auditions, and I think that really drove us apart after a while because we started like using each other for things.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like worried that this podcast, and I'm still a little worried about it.
Industry relationships can be tough because eventually it doesn't matter how much you love each other. You're in a competition. You're always going to be in a competition because you always want success for yourself.
Yeah, that's what I hate about my life here in LA in general. Is I'm constantly I feel like I'm in competition all the time.
But you know what? Just to take a slight step back, we were talking about when you start comedy and you have like the little group and the cliques. Like, I feel like that's one of the reasons why I personally fell out of comedy is when I moved to LA, I felt like that little clique of people that I had in either New York and then eventually Florida, it didn't exist in LA because it is so competitive and there's so much of that sort of like every man for themselves thing that I never found that. It's definitely a symptom of fucking LA life.
It's
sure.
Yeah, because you're constantly trying to get a job.
Yeah.
Even when you have a job, you know that job's ending, and it's just it's brutal, man. I was right up for this big pilot last week where I was gonna get a role opposite like Don Johnson, the woman who played Daphne on Frasier, and I did like the table read and everything, and it came down to me and one other guy, and then I didn't get it, and it's like it's caused me definitely like a week of like just self-hatred and just jealousy,
right?
Because it's just like, fuck, man, it's like you're so close to ascending to that next level, and then you don't, and then you're just back to where you are, and it just sort of like I've gotten better at not letting these things throw me, but this week for some reason it was just like. It really fucked with me.
The perfect week for the fucking
it just
sadness.
fucked with me. Yeah, and especially I got a birthday coming up. Like, oh god, it'd been great to have booked a big pilot.
I literally just had my birthday last week, and I always get fucking miserable with my birthday. I just turned 35, and I'm like, I have all of the same shit that I had at 30, and I'm like, man, what like. So like I'm already seeing 40 in my head.
No, you're right. Like, you're like, when does my life sort of ascend, and when does it begin?
But you know what though? Not to make this too fucking industry, but. Somebody asked me once, like, oh, what do you think the key to success in Hollywood is? And my answer was like, you just have to accept that you're always going to be sad.
I know, but that's like, that's probably a realistic answer, but it's not a satisfying answer because I don't want to commit to a life that is like that.
But some might say that it's like the only way to keep your sanity.
Well, I don't know. The good thing about dating a doctor the way I've been doing is she's so out of the industry, and I've been able to see the utter misery of her industry. Right. And I realize it's not just ours.
It doesn't matter. No matter what you do.
She's competitive and wants to be able to do other surgeries. She wants to do more of these transgender surgeries, which is a cool thing about the podcast. is that she's able to like talk a lot about this transgender stuff that people, calling questions about. And I think we've all heard a lot about transgender in the last few years, but we don't really know how it works.
Putting the fine details out there for the general public is always healthy.
But I see, like, with her job, she's a doctor, and she's fucking, half the time she's miserable and stressed out and having to work these insane hours, and then your dog's humping me again.
Seriously, campfire. Sorry.
I love it, actually.
Trying to have, like, the serious conversation.
This is the happiest I've been all week. I didn't book the part, but I'm getting humped by this cute little dog.
Campfire.
So it's all working out.
Relax, bud.
No, but so it helps you realize that, like, no job is perfect.
Right. And every industry has all of the exact same people that are the representations of that industry,
Yeah.
Really quickly about the podcast and going back to your parents, one of my favorite segments on the podcast is the love advice from your parents.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Which is fantastic. One, the fact that like the podcast is, the easiest thing probably to compare it to, of course, is like something like Loveline.
I would describe our podcast, the full release, as Loveline, but we're hosting it.
Right.
It's exactly the same. Well, I guess the other element is we're dating.
You're together. Yeah.
So we get to talk about our relationship in regard to...
And it's very transparent. Like you guys, there's nothing that's off limits, anything. And so my favorite part about that is the idea that after this hour-long conversation where you guys divulge every possible detail you could divulge about your relationship.
I know,
and
the
sex
first
lives.
episode, or the second episode of the full release, Ashley goes on a whole rant about how men have to attack the clit more.
Right.
They have to focus more on the clit.
Right.
And I'm sitting there like, all right, well, now everybody knows what I'm doing when I'm alone with her, just bashing that clit.
But then immediately like, and here are my parents.
I know.
Like, here, what do your parents think about like sharing their love advice?
Well, my mom and dad, they love getting that. I think they're actually having a lot of fun with that, coming up with like these.
Yeah.
It's also great because like they're getting ready to do their 50th anniversary, and so they're getting to reflect on their marriage. And I love how we have this little jingle in there too, like my parents give love advice.
Although I'm not gonna lie, like your dad tried to rebrand it for you, the Love Potion #9. He really was leaning into that real hard.
Love Potion #9.
But I said even like
I don't know, it's an old song.
It's like that's like a perfect like dad's idea of this is how we're gonna sell it.
I know. Well, it's funny because the podcast is like we do get so personal and transparent with it. And my mom she listened to it and she goes, "What is Ashley's parents gonna think?" And I was like,
right,
well, that's her
what
problem.
do they think of her job?
That's her problem. I don't know.
So with them like being the way that they were, growing up in this small like farm town, like so you say people picked on you because you were the only Jewish kid in
I don't
the
know.
town?
I feel like I'm just always sort of I position myself to always be in an antagonistic relationship with the majority of people. I don't know how I do it, but I do feel like there was no Jews growing up, and my name is actually Mohan, which is like a weird sort of Hindu name. And I didn't start going by Mo till I was in college. So, you're set up to be a little different right away. And I'm sort of a aggressive person by nature. So I don't think I was like, I don't take shit.
I'm surprised to hear that you're from where you're from, because I always just assumed that you were like a New Yorker.
Everyone
you have
thinks
sort of
I'm
like
from New York.
you have.
My parents are both from New York City, and it somehow like stuck with me entirely.
When did they move out to where you grew up?
Well, they moved to Boonville in the, right before I was born in the early 80s. But they moved out from New York City to San Francisco in like the summer of love,
Oh, gotcha.
60s.
Were they pregnant with you when they moved to, were you like the catalyst for Boonville?
No, they had my brother. They were living in a commune in Oakland in the hills, and they had, they were living like a dome, like a geodesic dome kind of little commune-y thing.
What?
Yeah.
So are they like full-fledged hippies?
Yes, but no.
Which is weird. You don't think about Jewish hippies.
Well, no, actually, there's a lot of Jewish hippies.
Really?
Like Allen Ginsberg,
Sure, okay, I guess.
Bob Dylan,
All right, that's
don't
fair.
discount the
I rescind.
Hebrew
I redact,
hippie component. But they, I would say they're hippies, but, compared to people in LA and bullshit hippies like in Laurel Canyon, they're hardcore.
Right.
Compared to their friends who live out way out in the woods and just grow weed.
Right.
They're definitely not hardcore.
Right.
So I would say, yes, they're legit, but then where I'm from, the bar's high.
Right.
They've got crazy friends who have been off the radar and off the tax code for years.
Were your family like sort of that family in your community growing up because of their like sort of hippie nature?
Well, it's funny because
I can imagine that the country, they're probably like some very like, country people.
Oh, it's super. When I was growing up, it was all redneck and loggers, and then Latino immigrants. And at this point, the town's probably like 80% Latino.
Interesting.
Yeah, because there's so much wine and sort of agriculture up there.
Right.
But
the jobs. Yeah.
It was very. Well, it's funny because it was very like hip. It was very redneck, and then the hippies started coming up in the 70s and 80s, and I think the rednecks didn't like that.
Right. Sure.
And then Latino wave kind of like surpassed all of it. And
which the rednecks really didn't like.
I'm sure they weren't really thrilled about that either.
They were like, at least the hippies were white guys.
Right. But it's an interesting community. I mean, it's pretty awesome, that area. Like at this point, the community itself is able to kind of get along with the different cultural factors in a way that is pretty special and unique.
Sure.
I don't think I see it in a lot of other places. It's like they have like a talent show every year, and there'll be like mariachi bands. There'll be like fucking, my parents will do like a tango dance. They'll do like some old redneck country stuff. Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
What was your actual high school demo?
So there's a little high school near where I grew up, and I went there up through 8th grade. The high school and the junior high were on the same property.
How many people were?
150 kids in the high school.
In the entire school, not in your grade.
No, in the high school, 150 kids. But I didn't go to that high school. I went. My dad worked in the town and still works in the town across the hill called Ukiah, and that town's got about 30,000 kids. Or 30,000 people. So I would go with him for high school over there because I thought I was going to be a big baseball star, and I wanted a bigger.
Oh shit!
Yeah, and then I played 1 year of freshman baseball and batted 170 and never got to play. So I was like, all right, I guess that's not what's going to happen.
Wow, really? Were you like in Little League was your shit?
Yeah, but I was not really good at it. I just was. I was sure I was going to be a professional baseball player, even though I was tiny. I didn't grow till later, and I wasn't good at it.
That was sort of me. Like I like loved baseball as a kid, and I loved playing it. And I think at some point it clicked where I was like, oh, I don't love this as much as other people are actually good at it.
I loved it as much as anyone has ever loved it.
Wow.
And it was a real good lesson to me in life where some things, no matter how much you want, will never happen. And it was very heartbreaking as a kid because I would read Ted Williams' book of how to hit and the science of hitting over and over
like
and over.
Practicing in the mirror and shit.
100% practicing in the mirror. I'm my bar mitzvah. I got a little money, and my parents let me spend just a little of it. And they put the rest in the bank, and I spent it on a wiffle ball pitching machine.
Perfect.
And I just would try, and then some fucking husky kid named Mike Espinosa, who
knows the name and everything,
wouldn't think about baseball until Little League came, would hit 3 home runs in a game, and I'd strike out every time. We're like, God damn it, it's not fair. And it was just
naturally gifted.
It was brutal.
Was baseball something your dad gave you? Or mom? I don't know why I'm just being sexist and assume it would be a dad thing.
What do you mean?
Like was your father into baseball and that's what you got? How did you get into it?
I mean, my dad's a big sports fan. You know, he's not a really good athlete either, if I'm being honest.
So
but I somehow,
genetic.
I actually remember seeing him play softball as a kid. He fucking sucked. He's a big guy, and he would never hit home runs. He would hit like ground balls, and I remember it's really weird. He had the same problem as I did. Right. He's a big guy. I was a really small guy until I was like 18. Wow. So like I was like 103 pounds as a freshman in high school, and so I couldn't hit for shit. But I also just wasn't very good at it.
Right.
I'm not a great athlete.
At what point did that? So freshman year, you said it was when baseball was done.
I batted 170, and it was just it was horrible.
Of the high school.
Yeah,
and like growing up in that town, not going to the high school. Did you have friends from your high school that were like real fucking far away? Like
it was really hard because I grew up in a town where all my friends who I grew up with were now at the high school. Where I lived, and they had their own social thing, but I was kind of disconnected from that. And then I was trying to go to school in this other place, and it was very hard to make friends because all those kids knew each other. Yeah, high school is probably one of the least happy times of my entire life. Really, I absolutely hated it. Yeah.
So you're not one of those people who looks back and romanticizes
I hated every aspect of high school.
Is that what made you funny? Do you think?
I don't know. I think I was always kind of funny in a certain way. If I look back on just how I was, but I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Yeah.
But did you do any other extra?
I wrestled for 2 years, which was horrible. I mean, some of those kids were nice to me. Like I had some friends on the wrestling team who were like tough kids from really tough families, and they for some reason liked me and like kind of took me under the wing a little bit. But
were you said that
never fit in really.
You said that you were small, but were you at least tall?
No. Oh. I was 4'11".
Wow. Okay.
It was
you were a real run.
It was brutal.
I don't know why they throw you on a wrestling mat. I don't know what weight class.
No, that's a great play.
93, like
103.
The 103, right, that weight class.
Oh, it's great if you can be light,
and
but I just wasn't. I don't know. I didn't have enough heart. I would give up in the third round.
So it's weird that I kind of glossed over it to ask that question, but you said that you never really fit in. Like that seems to be kind of a recurring theme. Did you always feel like you were tend to be the outcast?
I mean, by
whatever
nature,
group you were in.
Yeah, I always feel like that. But I found my home, I guess you'd say, at all in 2 things in high school I did very well at. I was I got into journalism on the school paper, and I was like really good writer, and I had my own
nice.
column called the full release of my podcast. It was
That would have been a really weird
that-
column for you to have as a
the full
child.
release in high school. Yeah, that would be a very apt column, actually.
Right.
No, it was called "Fending Off the Locusts." It's a very
Wow.
real pretentious.
Wow,
angsty-
you were a fucking emo kid.
I was fending off the locusts, and I got to give the graduation speech. At my graduation, I worked in my column. I was like, "Here we are today, fending off the locusts."
What was the column about? Was it?
Well, it's like
Because it sounds like a real like guy who shoots up the school kind of column.
It was interesting because right before I graduated was when that Columbine thing happened.
Shit.
And I went in and I gave a very passionate speech, and I remember some kid being like, "Wow, you're ramping up. I thought you were gonna like pull out a gun or something like that." I mean, nothing could be further from the truth.
Right.
It was just sort of like I was sort of, I was a dark little angsty kid. I had obviously there was no violent impulses, but it was sort of like, I felt like I was picked on. I felt like, a lot of the fucking like injustices of that age.
Yeah.
so
Also, just
I think
when you're a teenager, everything
is hard.
Yeah,
everything
is hard.
high school's brutal.
Yeah.
High school's fucking brutal. But the column, I think, was sort of about. God, it's hard to really remember where your mind's at.
Sure.
But I think it sort of was about like all the things coming at you, at that age.
Oh, okay.
Like you're kind of like an innocent at that age, and then like all the darkness of the world starts coming at you, like, and that's all the locusts trying to eat you up.
That's really interesting.
I think that's what it
that
meant.
your school would even like.
Oh, it was great. The column
Yeah.
was great. Like I won like a regional writing award for it.
Wow.
I was a really good writer at that age. Like I won. I also won $15,000 in speech contests
fuck?
in high school. I was like a dominant speech contester.
Holy
so I sort of
shit.
excelled in these two sort of kind of nerdy scholastic aspects.
Right, which both sort of lend
Absolutely
themselves to
do.
what
Yeah.
you do now.
Absolutely.
Was there ever a thought of like, oh, I'm going to be a writer now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wrote a novel in college. I was a creative writing major. Yeah, that's all what I wanted to do. I mean, at this point, I make my living as a writer.
Sure.
You know?
Did you go to college in San Francisco? Is that what brought you there?
No, I went to college in Santa Barbara at this place called the College of Creative Studies. Most famous guy in my college was Steve Aoki, DJ.
I production designed. Oh no, I art directed a video of his.
Oh yeah.
And this is not to demean the guy. My finger could not be further from the pulse of society. I had no idea who he was. I had no idea he was like this very well-known musician. And I just showed up for a job that my one of my best friends was production designing, and he hired me. And I'm like just literally that weekend wrapped up the video. Oh, great, nice to meet you. Great, good job. I'm driving to my brother's in Las Vegas, and I drive past a fucking billboard with the guy's face on it. And I'm like, hey, that was the dude from 2 days ago. Yeah,
it's hilarious.
He's
because,
huge,
dude. Yeah, I mean, for years I would hear about him, and I didn't know it was the same kid I went to college with. And then I saw him on Jimmy Kimmel. And I was like,
does he have does he use a different stage name? Are you outing him?
No,
right now?
I didn't. No, not at all. But I just didn't know. I didn't, I didn't know him that well, but
Right.
I didn't know his. I just heard, Aoki. I don't know. I just didn't put
Right.
it together somehow.
Right, sure.
And then I saw him. I was like, oh fuck.
That's that dude.
But at that time, I remember he has a record label called Dim Mak Records, and I remember him starting that in college.
Wow.
So he was a real hustler.
Was that like a real? Say the name of the college again. I missed it.
College of Creative Studies at UC Santa Barbara.
Oh.
So it was like a little bullshit school where you didn't get grades or any of that kind of stuff.
Oh, so it was more of like a trade school, but like a what do you call that? Like a vocational? What would you consider that?
No,
I'm
not
sure.
a vocational school at all. I mean, it's UC Santa Barbara, so it's a
Right.
legit school, but it's
Oh.
sort of like a creative like section of it.
Gotcha.
So you get a degree from UC Santa Barbara, but you don't have to.
Oh, you don't have to take fucking math.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly,
Right.
exactly.
And you got yours was in creative writing,
I guess technically creative studies.
creative studies.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
And you wrote a fucking novel. What was the novel you wrote?
It's called Midnight Delirium. Yeah.
Why you're laughing like
This
this
is
is part
such
of
a
it.
douchey, stupid, angsty little title.
Well, I mean,
It's like just combining two sort of like haunting words.
but also coming off of avoiding the locusts or whatever the
fending off the
off the
Yeah,
locusts.
yeah, it was
I
a
mean,
theme. Yeah.
it does seem like a natural progression.
Oh yeah, I tried to read it. Like remember, like when I first moved down there, and got a lit agent. I was like, oh, maybe I'll get that published. And I read
Right.
it, and I was like, oh god, it's horrible.
What was it?
It's just fucking horrible. I don't know.
But like,
I
what's
mean,
even the genre? You don't have to divulge the
it's
plot.
sort of like.
I'm curious to where the mind
I
was
would
at.
say it's sort of surrealist fiction. I think it was about like a kid who's like lost in college, and he sort of meets. One day he's down at the beach, and he runs into this like Frankensteinian sort of creature that sort of reveals this whole past, this sort of like dark past of experiments that were going on at the university.
Oh, okay.
And he sort of runs into this creature,
So it's a real genre piece.
It was genre-y, and then I think it was heavily influenced by Fight Club as well at the time.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, like just the way I wrote it in that sort of like way. Yeah,
yeah, everything's real gritty.
Yeah, real gritty.
A
real
big
gritty.
twist at the end that you know.
I don't know if I ever could quite figure out what the twist was. But it's, yeah.
So
I don't think I ever finished it. I got very far into it, but I never quite. I kind of wrote it like Frankenstein, I think, where like half of it was from one person's perspective and half of it was from the other person's perspective. Isn't that how Frankenstein goes?
I don't know. I wish that I could tell you. And my girlfriend is probably listening. She probably hear us from the other room and is probably miserable because it's literally her favorite book of all time.
It's a good book.
And the fact that I don't know, I'm gonna get in trouble for it later.
I later broke it down into a short story.
Oh, okay.
That was really good.
So there you go.
The Portal.
Same premise, just
basically
shorter.
The same premise, but it was that I think was even more influenced by Fight Club.
Eventually, you're just quoting.
I just
Fight Club.
wrote Fight Club.
Yeah. You're like the second rule of the Portal is you don't talk about portal.
Exactly. It was pretty close.
How long was that school program?
4 years.
Oh, so it was legit. And at what point do you find yourself in fucking San Fran?
So I graduated. I knew I wanted to start stand-up comedy, and
Did that happen in college?
Towards the very end of college, I tried like an open mic, like the summer after I graduated,
and it just sort of clicked.
I just liked it, yeah. And so eventually, I found my way to San Francisco. And
were you a fan of comedy?
Yeah, absolutely. I always loved stand-up comedy.
Wait, even from when you were little?
Yeah, yeah. I grew up with like listening to. I would always listen. Like I'd get really into whatever albums you can get your hands on.
Yeah.
Like Woody Allen. My parents still have this old Woody Allen record.
Nice.
Jackie Mason, Chris Rock, Jeff Foxworthy. Like any of the albums that were around at the time.
Right.
Yeah, and I always liked it a lot. And I would watch all the Comic View and Comedy Central, and
my big thing was people laugh at me, but my earliest recollection of comedy was Stand Up Spotlight with Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
VH1 every night. It was like an hour. It was essentially just like a young comedian special kind of thing where it was just like an hour of.
It's so funny to think of like people like Rosie O'Donnell as like stand-up comedians
and like kind of a stand-up comic like icon for a while.
Yeah, it's so weird because they're so far from that now.
Right.
You just don't even think. Like even Kathy Griffin, I forget is a stand-up comedian because like I've never once seen her perform in LA.
Yeah.
So it's so weird. These people are like stand-up comedians who like just do it.
Michael Keaton.
I know.
Fucking
One of the first guys at the Comedy Store. So there's hope for us yet.
Yeah, right.
We can actually go on and do other shit.
Yeah. All we have to do is leave this terrible thing behind.
If only anything was as fun as stand-up. I mean, I hate stand-up in the fact that you got to like constantly grovel around trying to get stage time every week. But when you're on stage, it's still the best thing there is. It's still more fun than anything else.
When you're up there and you're in control and you're having fun, it is like the ultimate high. But I do feel like
it's so few. It's so few and far between.
I do feel like like stand-up comedy is the only thing that you do for a lifetime, but quit every week. Fuck, I'm done with this shit. And then next week, oh, you want to get stage time? Yeah, sure.
Got it. Because it's just so much like a drug. The way you hear about people who are on heroin have to drive out to Newark to get fucking heroin, or
that's you going out for a one-nighter.
It's like just you trying to like scrapple around trying to get spots.
Wow, that is
constantly trying to get stage time.
That might be the best metaphor for stand-up.
Exactly like a heroin fix.
So
exactly.
So late college, you try and open mic. Why do you think it took so long?
I don't know. I mean, I was always writing short stories and like this novel, and everything I wrote was kind of funny. I think it was like darkly funny, but
when you were kind of a ham, you said you're always like a funny kid.
Yeah,
so what?
But I don't know why it took so long.
Never translated.
There wasn't a lot of opportunities. It wasn't like you'd walk by and see a comedy open mic.
Sure.
Especially
in the fucking town you grew up in.
Well, I mean, even in college, I mean, the way that I first went on stage is I was working at a family camp, and I had started writing jokes for some reason. I don't know why. I just sort of got into the habit, like just as like a practice.
Real quick, what do you mean by a family camp?
So it was like this camp. It was like a camp where like families would go to it. UC Santa Barbara.
Not just kids, everybody.
Yeah. And the kids would go do stuff, and the adults would do stuff.
Oh, interesting.
And, sort of like a lame
was it like they stayed there for a couple weeks?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, and I was a counselor.
Interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Yeah. There's those things around. It's like kind of like you have young kids and you want to go on a vacation.
Yeah, but somebody will watch them so you guys can do some fun shit
exactly.
too.
Yeah, then the family gets together at night.
I can see that. Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
So you were a counselor?
Yeah, the summer after I graduated, and I remember I had enough jokes I thought for like 10 minutes, so I told the other counselors to meet me in the laundry room like at like 1 a.m. or something, and I was gonna do stand up and that was like the first time I ever.
So you just did it for other counselors,
yeah,
not like for the people who attended. That's great.
No, but it went so well that somehow it got to the head of the camp, but she had me maybe do it for some of the people. I can't remember.
Right.
But I did ended up doing it again, yeah.
I have to ask, like, was all of your material like camp related?
No,
Okay.
it was mostly like, I think I leaned pretty heavy into like Jew stuff and like, I don't know. It went very well, but I'm sure it was horrible material.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like most people's first 10 minutes.
Yeah,
I love that you're like, oh, I got enough for 10 minutes. And I'm thinking, no, you didn't.
Yeah, probably enough for one joke. One joke. Luckily, I was just like kind of a natural performer by way of like having done theater as a kid and by doing speech. Like I always knew how to be in front of a crowd.
Right.
So I never had to really go through that.
You were never like
learning
nervous
phase.
about it.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm the youngest by a lot. And was that kid who was fucking desperate for attention as a kid because I just felt like I was in a land of grown-ups and older people. And I feel like what made me a fucking obnoxious child probably just lent itself to me being fine in front of people on stage.
Well, that's
public speaking.
Good point.
Not a problem.
When people ask me, like, were you funny as a kid? It's like, I mean, probably obnoxious is really the real word.
Yes.
Like,
I was. If
I don't think
watch,
adults are like, this kid's hilarious.
If I watch, it was more of like, all right, Jake, fucking, we all see you. But I feel like if you watch home videos of yourself as a kid, I'm putting myself onto you. When I watch videos of myself as a kid, I am just like, I would fucking hate myself. If I was an adult around me, I would hate myself.
I think a lot of my parents' friends and some of my older relatives have told me they hated coming over when I was a kid.
Yeah.
They would actually not come over sometimes because it was so much
just wouldn't stop
energy.
Yeah, that was the way I was. I was just like, everybody must look at me.
I know.
I must be on your minds right now.
I know. It's interesting. Whenever I'm around like a crazy kid, I'm always like, wow, man, this is fucking payback.
Was your brother?
No, my brother is
in any way?
No, my brother's very chill, and he's always been chill. And when we were kids, he was always like just super well behaved, and as an adult, he's seemingly extremely well behaved. And yeah, he's always.
What did he end up doing?
He's a partner in a law firm.
Gotcha. Well,
yeah.
My older sister is a defense attorney, brother, police officer, so I was also allowed to do whatever I wanted.
Yeah,
because they were like, oh, okay, I got one successful kid.
I don't think my parents ever really saw it like that. Like, because I don't think they had any expectations that I could do something like that. I think they just saw that I was so
I love
the way I am that I think
you didn't have the you can do anything you want.
No, not really. I mean, I remember wanting to quit comedy like when I was about 3 years in or 4 years in, and my dad sort of saying like, what else would you really be good at? I think they kind of knew that. I think that part of it was a realistic idea of like what my skills are, and part of it was also like you've never been interested in anything else. Like you've always been interested in creative stuff.
That's actually great. That's super supportive.
I think it's supportive. Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, I think it's like we were talking with baseball. It's like, would I be a great doctor? Right. Probably no.
Right.
Although I think I always thought I was dumber growing up because my brother is so smart and had such an easy time in school that as an adult, I realized like I probably could be a lawyer. Like I probably could do some stuff.
So you started stand up right at the end of college, and you found yourself in San Francisco because of stand up, or was it just the next?
No, it's kind of like I had a girlfriend who was living in England at the time because I'd done a study abroad in England, and so I went and lived with her for 6 months after college, and then
in England,
in Brighton, and I knew at that point I wanted to pursue stand up. I'd done some open mics around there, and gone up to London for some open mics, and I kind of sort of realized that San Francisco would be the best place for me to go. It had a great stand-up scene, and it's close to where I grew up. So, yeah, I went there and just dove in like head first.
Really? You just
just doing open mics every night.
Did you went there with the girl?
No, we ended up having to break up. She was from the Bahamas, and she was living in England, and the only way we could stay together is to get married, and it wasn't a very functional relationship.
Fair enough.
In a lot of ways. So I just went to San Francisco, got a job at Pete's Coffee, and just hammered it hard.
Nice.
Yeah. And that was like when Moshe Kasher, Ali Wong came a little later, then Hassan Minaj. I mean, a lot of like
that San Francisco,
a lot of star power.
You know Jasper Red?
Of course, he was like a big star. Where the fuck is he?
I don't know, man.
He's a good example of a guy who was like the king of San Francisco and moved there, and now I don't know where the fuck he is.
I don't know that I'd ever seen somebody.
Oh yeah, everybody felt that way about him.
Just crushed. The dude was just such a.
I'll tell you this: there is a certain thing with some people, and it doesn't happen to all of them, but some people who get good right away and get everything right away. I think it sets you up for a downfall. Now I don't know if that's the case with him. Yeah, I don't know if that's the case with Jasper. Maybe that's not what happened to Jasper. What will happen? But it's like. He was like right away. Everyone was like, "This guy's gonna be amazing. He's got a lot of stuff."
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for fucking getting your ass kicked for a while because it sort of like sets you up for what this business generally is, which is non-linear.
That's
true.
true.
It's like you have to deal
Ebbs
with
and flows.
No one giving a fuck about you,
right?
And then you have to like earn their respect again.
And then eventually they don't give a fuck about you again.
I hope he does find a way because I mean he's a guy who I don't know if people listening to this even know who he is, but yeah, he's a fucking genius. So funny.
I mean, I'm sure if. I want to say he did I don't know if he did a Comedy Central Presents, but I
Yeah,
want to say
he did a
like
Presents. I mean, he did like plenty
okay.
of stuff, you know, and he's been on TV, was on TV a lot. And I think somehow, you know,
right.
it just didn't kind of go to that
But yeah,
next level.
there was a lot of people that came out of that San Francisco scene that are fucking huge, obviously.
Yeah.
And was that sort of your tight knit circle? Was that sort of your crew?
Yeah,
that you hung out
Nico
with?
Santos, who's on that show Superstore, and
Right.
you know, NBC, and yeah, those are the people I would see like every night at the open mics and stuff.
And was that just sort of where you did all your grinding? How long did you stay in San
almost
Francisco
4
for?
years.
Oh, all right. So you did college. You did comedy
college. Yeah, and so I worked
college.
as like at Pete's Coffee. I worked at a taqueria. I worked at a bar as a bartender, and just sort of, you know, went full bore at it. You know, and then I moved down here in 2008.
And when you were going full bore in comedy college, and mom and dad super supportive. Everybody still just kind of
everyone's super supportive. I think I wasn't like, you know, I was always good enough where it wasn't like, it didn't seem like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it made sense.
Sure,
you know, I was a creative writing major, so it wasn't so crazy.
It wasn't too out of left field.
No, it wasn't too out of left field. And I mean, I had enough successes, like, you know, and it was sort of climbing the ladder. I think my parents were kind of like realistic about it, you know, like, you do this, you pay your own bills, so whatever, you know. And,
I mean, I guess if you're supporting yourself.
Yeah, I was always supporting myself, you know.
Were you dating? Were you in relationships during all that?
I was in a relationship about 2.5 years while I was there, yeah.
Yeah. And was
very,
comedy what
very
killed it?
dysfunctional?
Was it?
I don't know.
Seems to be a theme.
Yeah. I mean, my girlfriend now is great, and she's not dysfunctional at all.
Sure.
And the girl I dated for a long time in LA, I had better luck with functional women. Yeah. This girl I mean, she's a sweet girl, but we just argued all the time. You know, that was the only time I've ever been in a relationship where it was like, you just can't be around each other without arguing.
Right.
And so that's sort of
that's
like
the foundation for your relationship is friction.
And your friends, whenever they're around the two, you're like, oh boy, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? You know,
that's a long time. 2.5 years, you said?
Yeah.
That's a really long. Was that like out of convenience that you just stayed together for that long? Because I've been in that situation.
No, I don't know. I don't, you know, I don't.
Was she a comic?
No.
Oh.
Sort of.
What did she do at the time?
She was working as an assistant for that celebrity chef, Kat Cora.
No idea.
She was like when Iron Chef was very popular.
Oh, okay.
And Kat Cora now is like a very famous chef, whatever. But I think that when she started working for her, it really hurt her relationship because like that woman was such a psychopath and would just eviscerate her over the phone as her assistant.
Ooh,
I think it
really?
just hurt her self-esteem. I mean, this is obviously going back 10 years.
Yeah, of course.
But I remember that really changing her personality around.
Nice.
She was like a fucking wounded animal when she got off the phone with her.
So no wonder you guys were always fighting because she was always fucking miserable and hated herself.
Yeah, exactly. You know, maybe that Kat Cora woman settled down, but she seemed pretty intense at the time, boy.
So you got down here, you said 2008?
2008, moved down here.
Grind.
Girlfriend was done. And then,
I mean, I remember, shit, I'm going to start bringing up like sore subjects about shows that got canceled or shit like that. But I remember the American remake of Free Agents.
Yeah. That was like, that was a huge break for me.
That must have been pretty quickly. Because that was around like 2009, I think, right?
No,
or was that later?
It was 2012 that came out.
Oh, shit, I'm way off.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
2011, 2012 it came out. Yeah, that was my highest I've ascended, I'd say, in terms of traditional show business.
It was a great show. Got to work with some fantastic fucking people. One of my fucking personal comedy heroes, Joe Latrulio, was on the show with you, wasn't he?
Absolutely. Joe, Natasha Leggero, Hank Azaria, Catherine Hahn, NBC Primetime.
Right. Anthony Head was in that too, right?
Anthony Head, I forgot about it.
He was the only guy who came over from the British version of the show.
I forgot about that. I know that. The fact that show failed so hard, was canceled within 4 episodes, it's just a testament to how hard it is. Because
it's also a testament to just how wrong the some of the networks.
Well, but it didn't rate well.
No,
it really didn't rate. It didn't rate well.
Maybe it's. What do we have to blame audiences?
Al Madrigal.
Al Madrigal, right?
It was like every character was hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't know why it just didn't. Something about the concept of it, I don't think quite translated to an American audience.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, that was fucking exciting. That was like NBC primetime shit. You know, that's why I was so bummed when I didn't get this pilot this last week because it's like, fuck, I want to get back into those things. I just shot a really cool series for Go 90, which I'm really excited about, which is like Verizon's digital streaming service that Conan O'Brien's company produced, and I'm like the lead guy.
Oh, great.
And I'm very excited about that. So I'm hoping the acting shit will kick back in because, I mean, I really love doing that. And it's just sort of like, it's just getting those opportunities to climb up.
A second guest in the show that's had a Go 90 thing. Go 90 must be putting out some great fucking content.
Or you're getting low level guests. One of the two.
All right. Well, I was trying to build it up, but we can always bring
No. It's very exciting actually.
Yeah.
And on this project, there's like really, some really cool celebrities that are on it as well.
And that's like the Verizon's.
It's Verizon's streaming
app.
service.
Right. Oh, so it's
it's like they have their own website, and then also it's an app. You can get an ITV and stuff.
Any idea when that's coming out with that show?
I think it's coming out in July.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Really excited
Nice.
about it, yeah.
Well, you're fucking, you're always hilarious. You're always incredibly likable. I fucking appreciate the hustle. I feel like I'm always seeing your name somewhere. I really appreciate you coming. I really appreciate getting to know you a little bit better. This has been fucking delightful. Tell people where they can find you on the internet, where you want them to go check out.
Yeah,
Obviously,
check out
we've
the
checked out
full release.
Yeah.
Yeah, the full release on iTunes and SoundCloud and Stitcher and all that stuff. It's my girlfriend is a doctor. We take sexual questions and medical questions, and have a lot of fun, talk about our relationship. So check that out for sure.
What's do you know the hotline number that they can call? Like, what's the number they can? People listening right now, you got a sex question?
Call in, leave a voicemail at 213-631-3460. And like I said, free medical talk.
Yeah,
with a real doctor.
It really is a fantastic show. I urge everybody to check it out. And then you also have another show, Mo versus the World.
Yeah, Mo versus the World. That's sort of like my chance to kind of rant and to sort of dig into my own psyche.
Nice. Do you do that show by yourself?
Yeah, I do that by myself.
Oh,
Every now
nice.
and then I have guests. I had Theo Vaughn recently was on
great.
talking about sobriety for my sobriety month. I just went on my third year of sobriety or fourth year. I
Shit.
can't remember. Yeah.
Congrats.
Third year, I guess it would be.
Is Theo also sober?
Oh, yeah, totally sober.
When did that happen?
Got over a year ago, I think. Yeah.
Wow. I have not spoken to Theo in a while. I'd love to get Theo on the show if he could.
I actually just got to write and produce on his Comedy Central pilot. So we're hoping
Awesome.
that's going to go. It's really good.
He's a fucking character.
He's a wild man.
He's one of the weirdest guys I've ever met, but
Yeah.
he's just like the nicest dude,
Yeah.
but also the oddest. I'll never forget, he walked in when he met my girlfriend for the first time. He walked into the house, he was just like, "So what are y'all, like hipsters?" And I'm like, how do you answer that question?
No, I know. He sat down at the table with me and one of the other writers the other day, and he just goes, "All right, look at these white people."
Yeah.
He just sort of says shit like that. You're like, all right. That's
Yeah.
why he's so funny. He's just so out there.
The way that dude's brain works.
I know.
Like,
It's so funny because I've been trying to write jokes for him on it, and it's like you write some jokes and he'll like rewrite it in a way where you're like, I would have never thought of that in a million years, and I don't even know why that's funnier, but it is.
right. I'd fucking give money to just look at the world the way he looks at for one day.
I wouldn't.
Just for a day. You
I'll
don't want
take
the
his
escape?
career, but I don't want to fucking have to deal with being inside that crazy fucking redneck head the rest of the time. No, I honestly think Theo is the funniest comedian out there today.
Yeah,
I really do.
Yeah.
I truly believe that his comedy is more original than anyone else's. When you see him these days, it's just like it's
definitely fucking unique.
blows your mind.
Yeah.
It's so out there and it's so well crafted. Like he's found a way to make his weirdness relatable to people in a pretty amazing way.
He goes off on, even in conversation, the dude just goes off on bizarre tangents about stories about fucking kids he grew up with, or just like, and
or did he grow up with? You don't know.
that's, you know what?
You
You're
have no
absolutely
idea.
fucking right,
I have
Mo.
no idea where these kids are. If
Yeah.
they're from some sort of Narnia world that his brain goes to. I have no idea.
You're absolutely right. That dude must be, he probably lives his life like a fucking pro wrestler. Like, where's the line between
Where's the
real
line? That's
and
what I
kayfabe?
always wonder.
Yeah.
I've been friends with him for fucking, over 10 years, and getting to work with him on this pilot was like an honor, and it's been really fun. And it's something like, I drive off like, I don't know him.
Yeah.
Probably as well as I think I do.
Yeah.
Like he's a mysterious character.
He is. The most I think I ever got to know him was one day we actually had like a decently real conversation about like his parents, because he grew up and his dad was very, very old. His dad was like most people's grandparents'
I think he was
age.
like 70 when he was born.
Yeah. And like we had a real conversation. I was like, oh wow, I learned a little bit about this dude. And then everything else from that point on is just who the fuck knows.
Who knows? And who wants to know? It's so funny. Just enjoy the ride.
Yeah. So all right, where else can people find you on the internet?
All right, at Mo Mandel on Twitter, The Real Mo Mandel on Instagram, and then Mo Mandel on Facebook. And if anybody is in the East Coast, I'm headlining Caroline's Comedy Club in New York, May 16th. And then I'll be at the Comics Comedy Club in the Mohegan Sun Casino, May 17th through 19th in Connecticut.
Yeah. The Mohegan Sun. I grew up with those commercials, man.
Oh, yeah.
That fucking Mohegan Sun. Growing up on Long Island, that was like, if you can get away to the Mohegan Sun, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
As always, please follow me on Twitter at Liquid Jake, just Jake Lloyd on Instagram, and follow the show at Elaborate Pod. Still working at it. Another thing you could really do to help support the show would be to rate and review on iTunes. In fact, do the same thing for fucking the full release featuring Mo Mandel and Dr. Ashley, because iTunes reviews are a great way for new shows to kind of immediately get found by organic audiences that aren't just being passed along. So iTunes rating and reviews are incredibly helpful. And with that said, also share it with people that you know personally, because that's a great way to also help the show. Show your support at dragonwagonradio.com. patreon.com/donate. The entire network's completely independent. We have a lot of fantastic shows that we run, and we can use your support keeping the lights on and buying expendables for our guests, like coffee and toilet paper, so they're well fueled and well wiped. And last but not least, I mentioned at the top of the show, I just want to thank everybody who came out to the LA premiere of my debut feature film, Pinch, last night at the Lemley in North Hollywood. I'm not going to lie to you and pretend like I'm recording this after that. This is the day of, but I'm really looking forward to tonight, and I'm really appreciating everybody who's going to come out. I'm really looking forward. I think it's going to be a fantastic time. Hopefully you came, you saw, you conquered, and we took a selfie together. As always, please be an artist, not an influencer. Create art, not content. Thank you so much for coming, Mo.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great.
Love you, brother. Hey, everybody. I am sitting here with the delightfully tacky yet unrefined Zen Zenith.
I'm taken aback by that.
That's literally the slogan to Hooters. I don't know why. It just popped in my head.
Well, that's when I think me, I think Hooters. Thanks, Jake. So yeah, I'm here on your podcast to talk about my podcast.
You
right?
are. You have a
or
really...
am I just here for you to compare me to Hooters?
You have a really incredible podcast. All jokes aside, it is one of my absolute favorite experiences because I love discovering music through live performance, especially intimate live performances, and that is exactly what your show is.
Right. Once a month, we meet at your apartment, and we have a couple artists here who play in front of a live audience. And then I talk to them, we do a Q&A with the audience, and the whole thing gets recorded for your listening pleasure.
3 of my new favorite artists are from the House Show
Yeah,
show.
me too, man. It's such a pleasure to get to meet such talented folks, and you can check it all out for yourself at thehouseshowshow.com or on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever else you might listen to podcasts.
So do just that.
It's Dragon Wagon.